Rock royalty of the 80s versus rock royalty of the 90s has carried over into the 2020s. Hey neighbor, welcome back to Beyond ARTV and another installment of News It or Lose It, where I let you know what's going on along with a healthy dose of my opinion. Today we're talking about Pearl Jam's Eddie Vedder versus Nikki Sixx of Mötley Crüe, and of course 6am as well. Vedder is on the heels of a new solo project. He's been working on art as well. He did an interview with the New York Times where he ended up slamming not specifically Nikki Sixx, but the entirety of Mötley Crüe. In his time working as a gear enthusiast in the 80s, he started out in San Diego, started loading up various crews, and he would hear a lot of bands in the background, and there were some in particular that apparently he couldn't stand. I'd end up being at shows that I wouldn't have chosen to go to, bands that monopolized late 80s MTV, the metal bands that, I'm trying to be nice, I despised. Girls, 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 and Mötley Crüe, fuck you, I hated it. I hated how it made the fellas look, I hated how it made the women look, it felt so vacuous. He also threw in a not-so-subtle jab at Heather Locklear, who used to be married to Tommy Lee, and Tommy Lee is a different beast. I know there is a whole controversy floating around right now. If you're not familiar, Hulu has this new series out called Pam and Tommy, kind of documenting the insanity of Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee and their tumultuous relationship. It's something that Nikki Sixx finally took note of, and he responded on Twitter with a little late night tweet session. Made me laugh today reading how much the singer in Pearl Jam hated Mötley Crüe. Now, considering that they're one of the most boring bands in history, it's kind of a compliment, isn't it? Hashtag the stadium tour, hashtag rock and roll. Now, originally this is where I was going to start talking about my opinion, but there's been an update to the story. Eddie Vedder actually fired shots back at a recent live performance on the 7th of February, playing a solo track. He's been touring with Josh Klinghoffer, formerly of the Chili Peppers, and Chad Smith on drums, currently still in the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And right before Chad's drum solo, look what Eddie had to say.
That drum kit, that silver, beautiful machine that is the engine of, does not need to elevate or rotate to do its job. Let me just point that out. Let me Chad Smith on the drum.
If that doesn't make any sense to you, then you're probably not familiar with Tommy Lee's drumming style. It was always very flashy, as were Mötley Crüe. They were a glam rock, heavy metal band that definitely were about the look, at least to a degree, and his drum kit used to do all of these insane things like flipping and twisting, spinning through the air, and here Eddie Vedder is essentially saying, hey, his drum kit doesn't need to move through the air with pyrotechnics in order to be amazing. Alright, so what are my thoughts on this entire thing? I think it's kind of hilarious to see them feuding this publicly over something so trivial and also so long ago. This happens with a lot of aging rockers, it seems like, where they just want to air their grievances and they don't entirely know exactly how to do that, so maybe they pull it out at the worst possible time in an interview. Could this been avoided? Yes. Is it rather childish on Vedder's part? Perhaps. But is he lying? No, not really. Personally, I can't stand cock rock bands, like the ones that strut around with the super tight pants, but also like they're so prima donna about their own looks that they put that above everything. It's all about the girls, the women, the alcohol, the drugs, everything about it is just the sexual rock and roll fornicating lifestyle. But I guess I can see why it had its place. I mean, the 80s were apparently a wild time. I wasn't born until 1991, right as Pearl Jam were breaking into the scene. And now going back, having not grown up necessarily with either band, but being introduced to them in my teenage years, I clearly had more of a preference for Pearl Jam, and just to think in terms of artistic integrity that Mötley Crüe could ever hold a candle to PJ, no. I wouldn't necessarily call myself a diehard fan of Pearl Jam, although I do think they're a pretty incredible, important band, and we must protect Eddie Vedder at all costs because he is the only remaining alive vocalist of the entire Big Four in grunge. I also say that I defend them more so because, I mean, Nikki Sixx is just entirely off base with his assessment and calling them one of the most boring bands to ever exist. We are looking at a band that has actually had diversity and style to their music rather than just crass, over-the-top flavor that definitely attracted eyeballs for a long time and has dedicated fans, both do, But to call Pearl Jam boring is just to say that you don't understand what they're going for. And I understand what Mötley Crüe are going for, and I appreciate that they have their own fan base that's very enthusiastic and rabid, but at the same time, I just don't necessarily know if this needed to happen publicly at all. What side of the fence are you guys falling on? Does it matter? Do you care? Are you team Pearl Jam, Mötley Crüe? Let me know in the comments down below. Please leave a like on this video, subscribe for the love of music, and check out a couple of recent videos that are floating on screen right now.